I'm Ken Genser. I guess my phone picks up a bit. Been a resident for 36 years. I first ran for city council because I was really outraged at the amount of development that was being approved, and also I was a strong advocate, and still am, for affordable housing. But once on the council, I realized that being a council member was so much more than that. And as a council member, I've really worked hard to learn from the public, learn from our community, and really reflect community values in the areas of education, environmental stewardship, social services, homeless services, and probably many other things that I'm not even, arts, that I'm not even enumerating here. I think what I bring to the table is someone who listens to people, who gathers information, does his own analysis, and tries to come up with intelligent decisions for this community. I'd like to be re-elected. I hope I'll have your support, because I think we need to keep making Santa Monica even greater. I'm running on my record and on my vision, and I'm always very happy to talk about my positions on issues. I think there's a whole range of good candidates here, but I'm with Bobby on this one. I think it's not productive for me to start naming individuals other than myself, and I'm here to promote myself, and I'll keep doing that tonight.
Thank you. Ken?
The big weakness in rent control that I think is vacancy decontrol. That was done by the state. I had my say. We get rid of vacancy decontrol and get back to the kind of rent control that Santa Monica had before that. As far as income, that's really the landlord's choice as to who he or she rents to. I don't think the city should get involved, tell the private landlord who he or she should be renting to. That's a tough one for me to answer. I'll think about it. No.
I'm sorry, give me the money. Sorry about that.
Most of the time, sometimes there's just people who, frankly, I don't want to engage, but most people I try and engage with eye contact and pleasantry conversation. I frequently discuss with them services that might be available, and occasionally I buy food for them.
Thank you.
There's room for appropriate regulation, but as that question was asked, no. I'm voting yes on all the measures except for T. I just want to comment on two. Let me say, I think SM, we've got to understand it is not a new tax. Some people have said that it's going to start taxing cell phones and things. That's not the case. We already tax cell phones. It will only raise taxes for a very small segment, typically large businesses that get their telephone communications over T1 or T3 lines. I oppose Prop T because it is not focused on traffic. I very strongly share the goal. I've made other proposals on how we can deal with traffic, but I just don't think this will do it, and it's not an item that we can talk about in 30 seconds. I will have more time.
Ken?
I agree with what's been said. I think Ted said it very well about also having policy. Yes, I support bringing the heights down because what should be also recognized is out of a community plan in the late 1970s, the heights were established then, which allows taller buildings at the south end and at the north end. I think we should get rid of that and keep it all to the roughly two-story level, but I also agree that we should be having policies that preserve encourage the preservation of the historic buildings and the general fabric of that neighborhood. I'm a big supporter of preferential parking. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but I think it's the best one we have, at least in the short term. In the long term, we have to do more things to encourage people to travel without cars, but that's a long-term solution. But for now, I think the best thing we can do to make sure residents can enjoy living in their own neighborhoods is to have preferential parking. I agree with much of what's been said. I think we need to do intensive work. We need to do intensive work in terms of landscaping, better crosswalks, better islands for people to have a little refuge if they're crossing the street, make it easier for people to walk there from the neighborhoods. We need to zone it very, very carefully. I think parking districts might make sense. We have to be very careful that we don't attract regional serving businesses, but we attract neighborhood serving businesses. I'm strongly, adamantly opposed to the outrageous heights that are being proposed for Lincoln and Ocean Park, and I think we need to, and I actually think the loose draft is too high for the rest of Lincoln, south of Pico, or at least south of Ocean Park. I forget where the the boundary was, lights on. But I think we need to be very careful and keep it low scale. Yes, there are many, many policies relating to trees that need public hearing, and I strongly support this. First, I want to apologize to this person because I have no doubt they had a very tough time. I can tell you many horror stories I've heard. What we did is we commissioned a study to really analyze all our processes and see how they work. Then we we signed a special staff person to look at implementing the results of that study, to start changing the way we function in the department. But I think moreover, because I think that area needed a whole culture change, and because of various factors, people moving on to other cities and things like that, we have both a new building officer, and he reports to our relatively new planning director. They are clearly capable and working to change the culture there. I have every confidence it has gotten better, and it will keep getting even better. And I apologize. I just want to add two things. One is people say the bond was passed 2 years ago. The money didn't flow for a whole year after that. So we basically started collecting money a year ago, and it's starting to build up. The right way to spend bond money is to borrow against it with a stream of revenue so you have real money to do things. Nevertheless, we're accelerating this. The other thing that should be looked at is that the cause of all that problem right at the pier, or a major cause of that, is that there, in our existing stormwater diversion thing, something done to clean up the beach, there is a leaky valve. For simple people like me, that's what I call it. That now we're in process of getting re-engineering done to fix that problem. It was put there to clean up the beach. It's not working right. Now we're repairing it. It is not something that can be done right away, but the city staff has clearly accelerated this process. It will be ready before summer of next year. Completed is the projected date, and ready for the 100th anniversary of the pier.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
Yes, but because, as what I know now, absolutely yes. A process began yesterday morning with including the firefighters to start looking at doing analysis what the best solution is. If that committee comes up with another solution, we've got to seriously consider it. But what I know now, absolutely yes.
Thank you, Herb.
Yes, as I have in every election I've run in, and I think I'm very proud of my record in fighting development, and I frequently vote, and I can give you many examples, where I voted against those interests the contributors have given to me. I think, look at the record, but if you want to be a serious candidate in this election, you need to communicate, and the only way to do that is to raise money, absent public financing, or being wealthy, and we don't have public financing, and I'm not wealthy. I'll start. First of all, the developer, because it's been in the paper so much, happens to be a Santa Monica resident. I don't know if that matters, but I'm happy to take the money. I think what matters is my position and my vote. Now, in that particular matter, as your paper did report, the project proposed is next door to my apartment. I've already said that I'm not going to participate in that because of a conflict of interest. So, but there have been at least one public meeting, there's only been one that I'm aware of so far, that for the public to comment on the project. I was probably the most vocal person there, speaking as a neighbor, not as a council member, speaking against the project, and yet after that the developer offered me a contribution. I see no reason not to take it. It doesn't taint me, it's not going to change my position, and that's just but one of many examples I could give where I've gotten contributions for people that actively fought their projects. I think the two have to be kept separate if a council member is going to be doing his or her job seriously and ethically, and that's what I try and do. Generally, no. The only exception I would say is that if there's, say, renovation of a part of this high school campus for a defined period of time and parking is removed at that point, we as a good neighbor should try and help out for that short period of time. But in fact, if we're trying to encourage people to start